Are you seriously going to wear that old thing here? In front of my guests? Stephanie's voice sliced through the chapel's backroom like a dagger, her arms folded, her lips twisted into a sneer. You're not here to make a statement, okay? You're here to serve drinks. So don't embarrass me. I held the quilt tighter around my shoulders. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the effort it took not to scream. Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this, and also comments where you are watching from. Thanks. I wasn't planning to crash your bridal shower, Stephanie, I snapped, my voice barely holding its shape. But I work here. I clean your floors. I polish your gold-plated mirrors. And this, I pointed to the quilt, faded but neatly folded around me, this isn't just fabric. It's all I have. It's where I came from. She laughed. Loud, cruel, enough to make the two other bridesmaids stop adjusting their curls and glance over. Well, that explains everything. No wonder you clean toilets like it's a calling. You were literally dumped at a church door like a stray cat. Stephanie stepped closer, her voice a whisper now, but poisonous. You don't belong here, girl. Not in this church, not near my family, not near me. I didn't flinch. Not even as her words soaked in, bitter as acid. Because I'd heard it all before. My whole life had been made of people reminding me where I came from. And I was done listening. I'm not the one pretending to be perfect, I replied, my voice low and clear. You're the one hiding everything behind a white dress and lies. Her hand flew fast. The slap cracked through the room like a gunshot. And just like that, silence. But not for long. Touch me again, I whispered, and I swear to God, you'll find out just how much I don't care anymore. She stared at me, wide-eyed now. Not because she was scared. But because she knew she'd lost control. And for someone like Stephanie Madison, losing control was unforgivable. My name is Grace. And before I ever had a last name, I had this quilt. It was wrapped around me when they found me outside a small-town church, abandoned in winter, barely a day old. No note. No name. Just this handmade patchwork blanket stitched with purple roses and initials no one could ever trace. LRM. I spent my life bouncing between foster homes and group shelters. Each one colder than the last. People treated me like a problem that didn't belong anywhere. I never had family photos. No birthday cake with candles. No welcome home signs. Just pity, or worse, fake kindness with strings attached. And the quilt? It was all they let me keep. Every social worker called it the only clue to her past. But as I got older, it became something else entirely. A warning. A symbol of what I wasn't, wanted. Until last week. When I found it. A tiny tear in one of the corners, exposing a hidden stitch. A piece of paper, no bigger than my thumb, tucked inside for over 2 decades. On it, a phone number. And one name? Lorraine. Back in the church kitchen, I pressed a cold rag to my cheek. The sting of Stephanie's slap still throbbed, but it didn't compare to the fire building inside me. Why now? I asked myself, eyes flicking to the paper in my palm. Why today? Because the bridal shower wasn't just for Stephanie. It was for her mother. Lorraine Madison. The woman whose name was sewn into the edge of my baby blanket. The woman throwing charity events and posing with rescued dogs on Facebook. The same woman who, just hours earlier, had looked me up and down when I served her sparkling water and said, "You have the strangest eyes. Like I've seen them before." She hadn't even realized what she said. But I had. And I knew. That's when I made my decision. I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't follow her or sneak around corners. I was done hiding behind brooms and aprons and polite silence. I would ask her. Directly. Now. So I stormed out of the back kitchen, pushing through the elegant, flower-lined hallway and into the decorated reception area, still in my janitor uniform, quilt draped over my shoulders like armor. Gasps followed me as I walked in. Not because of who I was, but because I dared to interrupt the princess party. Lorraine stood at the front, laughing politely with donors, holding a flute of champagne in her gloved hand. "Excuse me," I said, louder than I meant to. "Lorraine Madison. I need to talk to you." Her eyes met mine. A flicker of confusion. And then, strangely, fear. She smiled, trying to smooth it over. "I'm sorry, sweetie, now's not a good time. Whatever cleaning issue." "This isn't about cleaning." I stepped closer. "It's about the church. The one on Whitman Street. The winter of 2001. Do you remember what you left there?" The entire room froze. Glasses half raised. Mouths open. Lorraine's smile dropped completely. Stephanie turned pale. And my voice rose louder than I ever thought I could speak. "You left me. Wrapped in this quilt. You know it. And I know you do." A silence deeper than shame followed. Until Lorraine finally whispered, "Who told you?" I held up the paper scrap. "You did. You just didn't know it." She reached for it like she was touching a ghost. "No one was ever supposed to find out," she murmured. "I was young. I was forced. They said it would ruin everything if I kept you." "You let me rot in the system," I snapped. "And you raised her like she was your only child." She looked at Stephanie, who stood frozen, her mouth trembling. "She doesn't know, does she?" I said quietly. Lorraine shook her head. "No. She can't." But it was too late. Stephanie's scream shattered the room. "You told me I was your firstborn. You told me she was nothing. Just a—" "Stephanie, please." "No," she screamed. "If she's real, then what am I? A replacement?" I took a deep breath. This wasn't the fight I came for. But it was the one I'd been born into. "I didn't come here to destroy your world," I said. "I came here to claim mine." I expected Lorraine to scream. To deny. To storm out in heels and pearls, yelling about lawsuits or hallucinations. But instead, she sank into a chair like the weight of 23 years had just slammed into her chest. Stephanie, meanwhile, had lost all sense of composure. Her hands were shaking as she pointed at me, then her mother, back and forth, like she was watching her entire identity shatter in real time. "Tell me she's lying," she begged, her voice raw. "Tell me she's some crazy girl off the street, trying to ruin us. Mom, please, tell me." Lorraine didn't speak. She didn't even blink. Which told me everything I needed to know. "I used to imagine this moment every birthday," I said. "That I'd walk into a room and someone would recognize me. Hold me. Cry. Apologize. Maybe even explain. But this?" I looked down at her. At the expensive makeup beginning to crack under real pressure. "This is worse than all the silence." Lorraine finally opened her mouth. "You weren't supposed to come back," she whispered. The room gasped again. "You knew where I was?" I asked, stunned. "I checked," she said, eyes glossy now. "Every year. I made donations to the shelters. I asked my lawyer to make sure you were surviving. But I couldn't see you. I couldn't risk anyone knowing. Not after how I left you." "Why?" I asked, my voice sharp with disbelief. "Was I that ugly? That shameful?" She flinched. "You were mine. But they said if I kept you, I'd be disowned. That my family name would mean nothing. My father threatened to put me in a home if I didn't give you up. He locked me in a hospital after the birth." Stephanie's mouth opened wide. "Wait. What? You told me I was a miracle baby. That you and Dad tried for years. You never said anything about—" Lorraine looked at her daughter then, finally. And it was like watching a porcelain doll crack down the middle. "You are a miracle," she said. "But you weren't the first." My stomach twisted. Because somewhere in that sentence was a darker truth. "You mean?" "I'm not just your daughter," I said slowly. "I'm your secret." Lorraine nodded once. "I never stopped loving you," she said, voice trembling. "I kept your quilt. I visited the church door every year on your birthday. I hoped, God, I prayed, you'd have a better life than I ever could give." I stepped back. "You could have fought for me," I said. "But you chose your life. Your comfort. Your image." "I was 17, she snapped, rising to her feet. "I was terrified. My father had me followed. He paid off nurses. I barely escaped with my mind, let alone the strength to raise a child alone in a world that hated girls like me." Stephanie crossed her arms. "I'm sorry," she said coldly. "But I didn't ask for any of this. If she's your daughter, fine. But that doesn't make her family. It makes her a mistake you kept hidden." I turned to her then. And smiled, slow, steady, without blinking. "You can keep calling me a mistake," I said. "But guess what? Mistakes grow up. Mistakes remember. And mistakes don't stay quiet forever." Stephanie stormed past me, slamming the door behind her. Lorraine stood frozen in the middle of the room, mascara trailing down her cheek. I knelt beside her. "I don't want your money," I said. "I don't want your name. I just want one thing." She looked at me, wary. "The truth. All of it." She took a long, shaky breath, and nodded. Then she whispered, "You weren't abandoned." "Not really. I was supposed to meet someone at the church that night, someone who said he could help me hide you, raise you quietly. But he never showed." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't think he was just trying to help. I think someone stopped him. Or worse." "You're saying you were set up?" "I'm saying," she hesitated, then whispered, "I think your grandfather made sure you were never found." The quilt on my shoulders suddenly felt heavier. Because this wasn't just about a mother's mistake. This was about a cover-up. One that might go deeper than either of us ever knew. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of the storm outside, but because the storm inside me was worse. I sat by the window of my tiny apartment, still wrapped in that faded, hand-stitched quilt like it was armor. Every square, every patch told a story I never knew. And now, maybe it held answers I wasn't supposed to find. I ran my fingers along the edges again. This time, slower. And then I felt it. A lump. Right near the corner fold, beneath a double stitch that didn't match the rest. I pried it gently open with a seam ripper from my old sewing kit. Inside, tucked deep between layers of thread, was a tiny slip of paper, brown with age, ink smeared like it had been wept on. It wasn't just any note. It was a birth record. My name wasn't on it. But someone else's was. Baby girl W, born 11:42 p.m., September 3rd, to Lorraine Whitmore. Signed by Dr. Harold Keyes. My birthday. My mother. But the name? Baby girl W? Why no first name? I stared harder, heart pounding. And just below the signature, a stamped line that stopped my breath cold. Certificate of stillbirth. Stillbirth. Still. Birth. My lungs froze. Someone declared me dead, I whispered. I blinked. Once. Twice. I read the line again. Someone had faked my death. I wasn't just abandoned at that church. I was erased. My hands were shaking now as I grabbed my phone and searched for Dr. Harold Keyes. He'd be in his 60s now, maybe older. Probably retired. But one obituary later, I found the name of a nurse listed in his former clinic. A woman named Joanna Redfield. She was alive. And she lived just 2 towns over. I was in my car before the sun came up. Her house was small and pale blue, with wind chimes on the porch and a ramp instead of steps. I knocked 3 times. When the door opened, I was face to face with a woman in her 70s, sharp eyes, firm jaw, silver curls pulled into a bun. "I'm sorry to bother you," I said, holding out the note. "But I think you knew my mother." Lorraine Whitmore. She stiffened instantly. "What is this?" she asked, eyes locked on the paper in my hand. "This was sewn into the quilt I was left in as a baby," I said, swallowing hard. "It says I was stillborn. But I'm standing here. Alive." She stared at me for a long, trembling second. Then stepped aside. Inside, everything smelled like lemon polish and thyme. Joanna sat down slowly, never breaking eye contact. "I remember that baby," she said. "Your mother screamed so loud that night, I still hear it sometimes. The baby girl who came too early, and almost didn't make it." I leaned forward. "Almost?" Joanna looked away. "She did make it. Weak heartbeat, low oxygen. But she lived." I held her myself. "Then why?" "Because," Joanna said bitterly, "when I handed the chart to Dr. Keyes, he told me to mark it down as stillbirth. He said the family demanded it. That it was a matter of private shame. He handed me an envelope full of money. Said if I couldn't do it, he'd find a nurse who would." My mouth went dry. "You're saying, my own grandfather paid for my death to be faked?" Joanna nodded. "He was ruthless. Old money. Thought a child out of wedlock would ruin their legacy. And when your mother started screaming that she wanted to keep you, he had her sedated. Next thing I knew, you were gone. But where did I go?" She blinked. "I thought they gave you to a private agency. But maybe someone else took you. I don't know. But if you showed up again, alive, that means someone saved you." I reached into my bag and pulled out the quilt. Joanna's eyes widened the moment she saw it. "I remember that quilt," she gasped. "Your mother made it in secret. She worked on it every night while she was pregnant, said it would be the only gift she could give you. And someone used it to hide this lie for 2 decades, I whispered. But then Joanna looked closer. "No," she said. "Not someone." She flipped one of the corners with practiced fingers, and revealed something I hadn't noticed before. A small, faded stitch in red thread. 2 letters. SW. I frowned. "Stephanie Whitmore?" Joanna shook her head. "No, she wasn't born yet. But someone else was." She stood slowly and walked to an old filing cabinet in the back room, pulling out a thin envelope. It was yellowed with age and labeled confidential. Inside was a grainy black and white photo of 2 swaddled babies in a hospital crib. Twins. My legs buckled. "You weren't alone that night," Joanna said. "There were 2 of you." I could barely breathe. "Where's the other one?" She hesitated, then whispered, "I think she never left the Whitmore estate." I stared at the photo. The second child. The second name. SW. Stephanie didn't replace me. She was my twin. The one they kept. The one they gave the name, the life, the future. And me? I was the one they buried on paper, and dumped at a church door like trash. "You're not on the list," the guard said. "I'm not asking to be on it," I said flatly. "I'm family." He looked at me, my thrift store dress, scuffed heels, and shaking fists, and rolled his eyes. I said, "Leave, lady." I didn't. I just pulled out the quilt. And I threw it across the polished marble floor of the Whitmore estate, right in front of the crowd filing in for the reading of the will. Everything stopped. Gasps. Whispers. Phones going up to record. And then Stephanie turned. Her perfect blonde hair, her designer dress, her golden heels, everything about her screamed a life that was built to be admired. She saw me. And for the first time in years, she froze. Grace, she whispered. I stepped forward. I guess your memory works fine after all, I said. Though I wouldn't blame you for forgetting the twin your family buried alive. Gasps rippled through the room. Twin, someone whispered. Stephanie's face turned pale. Stop, she hissed under her breath. We can't do this here. Oh, I think this is exactly where we do it, I said louder, turning to the attorney. You're here for Arthur Whitmore's estate. Great. Add one more name to the list of heirs. Excuse me, the attorney blinked. I'm Grace Whitmore, I said. Firstborn daughter of Lorraine Whitmore. Declared stillborn on paper, dumped at a church in real life. But I'm here now. And I have proof. I pulled out the original forged birth record. The quilt with my mother's stitches. And finally, the DNA test I'd taken just days ago. The one that confirmed Stephanie Whitmore and I were genetic matches. Twins. The crowd was stunned into silence. But Stephanie? She snapped. This isn't fair, she shrieked. You can't just waltz in here from nothing and take what's mine. Yours? I said, my voice trembling now. You mean the life that was supposed to be ours? The one I got erased from so you could live it without guilt? Her eyes darted around, wild now. She's lying. This is fake. My grandfather would never. But then, a slow voice cut through the chaos. I would never what, exactly? Every head turned. And there, from behind the sliding doors, in a wheelchair pushed by a nurse, was Arthur Whitmore. Alive. The room erupted. But, he was declared. Grandpa. What are you doing here? Arthur looked at Stephanie. Then at me. And finally at the quilt on the floor. He reached out a trembling hand. Lorraine made that quilt, he said softly. Before I made the biggest mistake of my life. Stephanie blinked. What mistake? I let my pride destroy my daughter, he said. I forged a death. Paid off a doctor. Lied to the world. Because I was ashamed she got pregnant out of wedlock. Gasps again. But worse, he said slowly, locking eyes with Stephanie, I chose to raise only one of the twins. The one I thought could be controlled. Stephanie's lip trembled. You picked me? I robbed Grace of her name. Her home. Her mother. His voice cracked. And for what? Status? He turned back to the attorney. Rewrite the will, he said. Split it evenly between them. Stephanie screamed. No. You can't do this. I'm the one who stayed. I took care of this family. She's a stranger. She's nothing. I stepped forward. Then you should have treated people better. Because the only thing more hollow than your life is the way you talk to people when you think no one's watching. I turned to leave. But the attorney spoke one last time. There's one more condition in the will, he said. Arthur requested the final heir take possession of Lorraine's quilt. As a symbol of love and sacrifice. The quilt. I picked it up with shaking hands. And for the first time in my life, it felt like home. I thought that walking out of that house, the estate that should have been half mine, would feel like a victory. It didn't. It felt empty. Like I had just closed a door that had been half open my whole life. And behind it? 1,000 what-ifs. 1,000 nights no one ever tucked me in. 1,000 memories that belonged to someone who had my face, but never my life. Stephanie didn't follow me. She stayed back, screaming about lawyers, money, fairness, all the things she thought gave her power. But she didn't realize. I wasn't fighting for money. I was fighting for the truth. And I had it now. The quilt was wrapped around my shoulders when I sat at the edge of the city park that night. I didn't care who stared. I didn't care that I looked like a grown woman clinging to a childhood blanket. That quilt had been with me when no one else had. It was more mother than the woman who birthed me. More truth than the lies I was raised on. And then, a quiet voice behind me. Grace? I turned. And there she was. Lorraine. Older. Fragile. Eyes red from crying. No cameras. No entourage. No estate guards or lawyers. Just a woman who finally ran out of places to hide. She walked toward me slowly, then sat on the bench beside me without asking. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Until finally, she did. I named you Grace, she whispered. Because I thought, maybe God would forgive me. I didn't look at her. You dumped me. She nodded, eyes full of tears. I did, she said. I was young. Scared. My father, he gave me a choice. Raise one baby under his roof. Or none. I finally turned. And you chose her. She didn't deny it. I did, she said. But I thought about you every single day. My voice cracked. That didn't help me when I cried myself to sleep in a group home. She wiped her eyes. I know. And I can never fix that. Silence. Just the wind, and the sound of a mother's guilt pressing against her chest like bricks. Why come now? I asked finally. She looked at the quilt. I made that with your grandmother, she said. When I was pregnant. Each stitch was hope. I couldn't keep you. But I could leave you with something that knew you. I swallowed the lump in my throat. She reached into her purse and handed me something. A photograph. Old. Faded. 2 babies. Wrapped in the same quilt. Your first photo, she whispered. Together. I stared at it for a long time. And then I said what I never thought I would. I forgive you. Her head shot up. I don't deserve. No, you don't, I cut her off. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it so I can stop carrying the weight of a past I never asked for. She broke down sobbing. And I stood up. Not broken. Not bitter. Not burning with revenge. Just free. 3 months later, I opened my own quilt shop downtown. Gray-stitched, custom, hand-stitched memory quilts. People came in with pieces of their life, and left with something warmer, something whole. Word spread fast. Newspapers picked it up. Abandoned child becomes symbol of healing. I didn't care about headlines. I cared about the woman who came in with her mother's scarf. The teenager who wanted a quilt made from her foster home t-shirts. The dad who lost his daughter and asked me to sew her baby blanket into his coat lining. That's what mattered. Building something out of what was broken. Stephanie never reached out again. Not even once. But I wasn't waiting for her anymore. The truth didn't need her approval. I had my name back. My story. My roots. And every time I stitched someone else's pain into something beautiful, I remembered one thing. I was left at a church door wrapped in a quilt. But I grew into the kind of woman who wraps the world in love. Because when the truth finally finds you, you have 2 choices. Break others with it, or build yourself. And I chose to build. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who leave us behind. But our worth isn't defined by who gave us up, it's defined by what we choose to do with the truth. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the pain, it's about freeing yourself from it. Because healing doesn't come from revenge, it comes from building a better life than the one you lost.